Everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only, and they're offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website or to tctvonline.com. Click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room or online for public comment? Thank you. Okay, well then we'll welcome everyone, invite you to sign our guest list, and start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Olson, please lead us.
I will.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. So we have one unscheduled item today that will be taken after item 10 on the agenda. And with that, we'll jump right into the legislative administrative agenda with item 5, which is consideration of modification number 1 to the memorandum of agreement number 6437 with Tillamook County Community Action Resources Enterprises, Inc. for a coordinated homeless services office. And with us, we have Mariliza De Jesus, the project manager of the Houseless Action Network. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you. Glad to see you in person. Thanks for joining us.
Great. So we have we already had a memorandum of agreement with the county to establish the coordinated homeless service office for the fiscal year 23-24, and this is just a modification to that to include fiscal year 24-25. So there were a few key changes that we made, including the reimbursement amount for the next fiscal year starting next month, which would be $236,755. And then we had another key change, which included CARE acting as a funding hub for the Coordinated Homeless Service Office, which is something that the Houseless Action Network has been looking at CARE functioning as, but we didn't officially have it in the memorandum of agreement.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, comment?
Yeah,
question?
so just a reminder to everyone that this is funded under the $1 million we got for House Bill 4123. So these are not county funds that are being utilized for this. This is the continuation of the work that was funded in the pilot program through the state of Oregon. So CARE has been our coordinated homeless services center, if you will, and we've been building it. So what's exciting is that year 1 is under our belt. We have our 5-year strategic plan. We have our operating plan. Mariliza is in place and has been well established now as the program coordinator, is coordinating the Houseless Action Network, which is bringing together the partners in the community who are all working on the implementation of that annual plan under the strategic plan. And so the changes that Mariliza referred to, one is just what do they expect to spend in the upcoming year? And then the other related to being a funding hub is related to because we have the Houseless Action Network, which is a local planning group recognized under the governor's emergency orders related to houselessness. We are receiving funds directly from the state into Tillamook County. And because CARE is the Coordinated Services Office, those funds are going to CARE. And CARE is then working through the Houseless Action Network to disperse those funds in the community to other service providers. In this case, based on the rules that have come for the funding so far, it's been limited to CARE, to Tides of Change, and to Helping Hands, because those have been the three that are doing services that are allowable under those funds. So adding them as the funding hub was just another milestone and important piece of recognition in our system. So I'm excited that Marlies is here with us. I'm excited about the progress that's being made, and look forward to continuing to do that work.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I have no additional comments or questions. Really, I think the explanation given was very adequate. And of course, Commissioner Scar has quite a background in that, so I would defer to her on that. But I appreciate what is being done in this area because it makes the community part of a community. It's simply one of many pieces that makes it a worthwhile place to be and takes care of those individuals and situations that otherwise might do without. So yes, I fully support this going forward.
Terrific, as do I. I appreciate your work on this, and I think it makes sense. I appreciate the explanation also. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 1 to memorandum of agreement number 6437 with Tillamook County Community Action Resource Enterprises, Inc. for a coordinated homeless services office, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Marlisa.
Thank you, Marlisa.
Item 6 is consideration of a training affiliation agreement with Oregon Health Sciences University for healthcare-related programs. And with us, we have Marlene Putman, Director of Health and Human Services. Good morning.
Good morning. We have 2 agreements on the agenda. The first one relates to an affiliation agreement with Oregon Health and Science University for healthcare-related or clinical affiliation for students. Medical students, could be others as well, at OHSU to shadow, train, work with our clinicians in our primary care clinics. This is coming to you as I think a new requirement. We've had some agreements with OHSU for decades, but it's always good for everyone to have the information. The contract for healthcare services will be expiring in October. We're getting ahead of making sure we have the agreements all in place for the next 5 years. They run that term unless there's modifications in between. So this has been reviewed by legal and by our staff and by those at OHSU.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments from Marlene?
I don't think so. We've seen a number of these before. It's the opportunity for students, as I understand it, to come and work in our clinics and gain experience. And this just sets the expectations under which that partnership exists. So I think it's a great partnership, and appreciate the opportunity to have it come in front of us. As the risk managers of the county, we're always looking at what are the pieces that we're committing to, and I think it's a good agreement.
Thank you.
I have no questions either of any significance. It appears to be another part of what is done in our health department and in affiliation with our main university dealing with this sort of thing, including the medical school. I think is good.
Terrific, as do I. I'm glad, that students have the opportunity to come here and serve in our clinics as part of their learning practice. And hopefully some of them want to come back here or apply for jobs when they're done. So I think it's a win-win all around. So we can take these 2. Do you have something different to say about the non-clinical? I see these are clinical and non-clinical, these 2 items.
Yes, the only, the difference, there's some changes in the language and the scope of the project for non-clinical. We're working with public health and other majors that are with OHSU's program. We haven't had a non-clinical agreement for probably the last, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
We've had the clinical agreements for some time, And I was reminded, Commissioner Bell, when you talked about those that might come back, we have had a psychiatrist here. We have a doctor who's been with us for 10 years now that came out of one of these rotations in the past. So anyway,
That
the
is
difference
great.
is one is just for those other types of majors in public health, et cetera, on the non-clinical side. So this is the first time that we've had it, but it's also a 5-year agreement, same kind of setup.
Thank you. Okay. Let's take the first one first.
Okay. So Madam Chair, in consideration of a training affiliation agreement with Oregon Health Sciences University for healthcare related programs, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, the second one, which I will read now, is consideration of a non-clinical training affiliation agreement with Oregon Health Science University for healthcare-related programs. Marlene just described it. Is there anything you want to say about it? No questions? Okay, so I think what I didn't know about that is that we haven't had it for a number of years, and I think it's great that it's coming back, because certainly people need training in those areas, and we need people to be able to hire in those areas. So I'm pleased that it's coming back. I think we're ready.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a non-clinical training affiliation agreement with the Oregon Health and Science University for healthcare related programs, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Okay. Item 8 is consideration of a contract for goods with Tillamook Motor Company, Inc. for the Parks Department vehicle purchase of a 2023 Ford F-150 pickup truck. And with us, we may have Dan Keys online. I think we do. Keyes, sorry.
Is it Keys or Keyes?
Keyes.
Keyes, thank you.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. It's Keyes. I've been called Keys forever though, so that works.
Good morning.
Yes, I'll try to answer any questions I can.
Okay, do you want to, well, actually, probably all of this happened before you arrived, right?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. So this is one of the trucks that Parks ordered 2 or 3 years ago and has waited and waited and waited for, and has finally arrived. So it's yeah. So literally, I think Parks waited 3 years for some of the vehicles they ordered. Wild, but finally they have it. They were so excited to get a particular truck that they ordered years ago that arrived last week that Parks employees were sending me pictures like, it's here, it's here. It's very exciting. I know. Okay, so do we have any questions?
No, but that would explain why we're purchasing a 2023 here halfway through 2024, when they're probably getting ready to release the 2025 models, because it's been
Yes.
on order.
Yes.
No, I would agree with that statement. You know, a new truck is a new truck, and after about 6 or 8 years, really doesn't matter what year it is, you keep it going. And I don't know how in the world you operate without the correct vehicles, and obviously you did. And as you indicated before, some of them have been used and run until they literally stop. And so this is a step forward, and so good for all of us. Let's get it done.
One of the Parks employees who sent me pictures of the new truck last week said, "Oh, well, we've changed our color scheme from rust to white." So this is exciting. All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of a contract for goods with Tillamook Motor Company, Inc. for the Parks Department vehicle purchase of a 2023 Ford F-150 pickup truck, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Dan.
Commissioners, thank you for your support. Much appreciated.
Okay. Item 9 is consideration of an order in the matter of notice of intent to award a contract for the Wilson River Training Structure, Shiloh Levy. Rachel?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm carrying this for Chris today because he's unavailable. On March 25th, Public Works put out an advertisement to hire the the engineering team and the construction manager for implementing the repair at the Shiloh Levee along the Wilson River. They received 2 timely bids, and the lowest responsible bidder is Dowell, and they were the entity that was also helping us in scoping this and providing an assessment and cost estimates as we were pursuing grant applications. So they've been involved in the Shiloh a little bit already. The amount of the bid for the repair is $670,372. So this is the notice of intent to award, and the contract will come before you next week, barring no protests.
That's great. Questions, comments?
And sorry, I forgot to add, this is being paid out of the state grants that we've secured through the legislature and Biz Oregon.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I have no particular questions. I understand this has been underway for quite some time, and the Shiloh levy has been there for an even longer time. And to the extent it can be brought current and a part of what we do and protect here in the county, let's get it done.
Thank you.
And this is for the engineering. You probably said that, right?
Yeah, engineering, basically this gets us up to construction bid documents and bidding, and then oversight of the construction.
Perfect. And I think what's interesting, somebody asked me about this project the other day, and I was sharing that it's very complicated and expensive. I think we're talking about over 4 million in total, because we actually have to essentially divert the river away from the levee for this repair to be done. And I think that, people have said, well, why didn't you guys just fix it? Because it is 4.5 million or somewhere in that range, and does require an actual drying out of that levee in order to fix it. So this is a huge project, and I think a huge thanks goes to Rachel for finding this money. And a huge thanks goes to Tilda. Tilda with the Tillamook Bay Flood Improvement District has kept this project on everyone's radar and continually waved the flag about the importance of the project. And so Tilda Jones, if you're watching us today, thank you. We hear you. We finally have gotten, with the South Jetty being worked on, this got to be our top project, and we're finding the funding and getting it done. So.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. My thanks to Rachel for finding funding for this. It had been on our list of things to do for 10 years at least. And it is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And also I appreciate Tilda's ongoing passionate advocacy for flood mitigation and improvement. And with that, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order number 24-031, in the matter of notice of intent to award a contract for the Wilson River Training Structure, Shiloh Levee, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Rachel. Item 10 is consideration of an order in the matter of increasing customer rates for the solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee, Recology Western Oregon. And with us, we have Justin Weiss, the program manager of Tillamook County Solid Waste, and you're welcome to invite other people. Sure.
So there's room for both of us. So, the matter before you today is a requested rate in Recology of Western Oregon. About a month ago, we had a rate increase from City Sanitary. We did request about a 5% increase, and Esseco Valley Sanitary, as well as our sanitary services, not be requesting a rate increase. So, our fourth and final hauler here, Recology, requested an extension due to some technical cybersecurity issues, and so they submitted their rate review request about a month after the other haulers. So we addressed this at our last SWAC meeting on May 9th. We reviewed the rate request, looked at the numbers, and SWAC submitted for approval, or moved the rate request in front of the commissioners for approval. They approved the requested rate increase based on the review of a final financial document that they submitted the morning of the SWAC meeting. So I had a chance to review that, look at the numbers, everything jived with the other financial documents they did submit. They're requesting a 5% increase for the, and that puts their projected profit margin based on the ordinance number 4. There is an 8 to 12% profit margin for the haulers within the county, and this would potentially put them at the 9.6%. profit margin rate, and as we've discussed numerous times here, with the rate increase for the station as well as the haulers. Unfortunately, Recology can speak to some of the specific issues that would trigger this requested rate increase, but again, costs are going up for everyone. So I will now invite Dan and Katie up if you'd like to ask them any questions regarding the rate. If they'd like to say a few words.
Thank you.
Justin.
Dan and Katie,
Good
please
morning.
introduce yourselves for the record. We're glad to have you here in person.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bell, commissioners, county staff. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. My name is Dan Blue. I'm the Government Relations and Community Engagement Manager for Recology Northern Oregon. And I've been with the company for just over a year. Very happy to be here today.
I'm Katie Hardesty. I'm the operations manager for our site out of Thornton, Oregon. I've been in the company for 13 years. Started out as a driver. I drove for 10 years all through Manzanita, Halem, and up through Thornton and Westports. And I'm off Spanish.
So if we have just a few minutes, we'd like to
Sure.
share some updates with you today about Recology, a little bit of background about the company. Katie will talk more specifically about our services here in Tillamook County and North Coast generally. So I support Northern Oregon, so I do work with all of our counties and cities, Yamhill County, Tillamook, Clatsop, cities here at the coast from Manzanita north to Astoria, as well as McMinnville and the surrounding cities in the valley and in the metro area. So I'm very happy to be today. I'll try to be brief. I know you have a busy schedule. So a little bit about Recology. We operate on the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington. We have 3,700 employees. We have 26 different collection companies. Recology Western Oregon is one of those. We operate 24 transfer stations, 14 material recovery facilities where recyclables are processed and shipped to market. We also operate 8 composting facilities. One thing to distinguish us from some of the other larger garbage companies is that we're not a landfill company. We really focus on providing safe, efficient, reliable collection services, materials handling, and composting. So we're trying to work on the waste reduction side of things and not just make money off of putting. So one of the things that differentiates us a little bit. We are the only employee-owned garbage company in Oregon and the largest employee-owned company, garbage company in the nation. So what that means for us is that no one person in the company can own more than 1% of the company as well. So our not only do our wages come and stay locally in the form of drivers who live and work here, but also any kind of profit that the company earns comes back to the employee owners. And some companies that do that set aside 25 or 35% of profits for their employees. Recology puts 100% of it back into us. And so it keeps us very committed, motivated to do a good job and also really be transparent in how we do things. That's why you get so many details about our financial operations. So we're very proud of that. Let's see. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Katie to just provide some comments about the collections operations here in the North Coast, and then I'll jump into the rate review.
So right now we have 45 employees that Recology. And 3 of them are employed down here in Nehalem. We have a satellite shop outside of Nehalem right now where we run 3 drivers and we're offering residential, commercial, and drop box services. We are trying to get more into the donating services. I know we do the solid beach cleanup, we did the cleanup, Nehalem Bay cleanup and stuff like that. That is something we would like to do more with Tillamook. I'm just gonna go over the drivers real quick. I don't know if you know them, but Carl Peters has been with the company for 15 years. Mark Olson has been with the company for about 6 years, and then we just hired John Johnson, who will be starting soon to start picking up some of the more rural areas that are harder to get to. And I'm really excited. I'm really proud to offer them positions that have living wages, 401k, the ESOP, employee ownership, and all these things to get them to retirement, because it's really important for us to provide the citizens of the county good paying jobs that they can. So yeah, so right now we're providing those services through Manzanita and through Rockaway. And
Oh, and the transfer station. So of course, Clatsop County is where we have most of our services. We did work with Clatsop County to start providing recycling to the whole county of Clatsop. So that's been really great. It's also something, you know, we look at for Tillamook as well. Hopefully we can get that diversion of what we. But other than that, if you have any questions, Dan.
Cool, thanks, Katie. So I want to thank Justin for working with us. He mentioned that we submitted our rate review documents a month late. We did experience a very significant cyber incident in October of 2023 that really knocked out all of our systems and for an extended period of time. So we were unable to access our customer account data, our routes, lists. Most of our financial systems were impacted. And so it really kind of set us back. We have recovered fully from that. And I want to take a second to acknowledge and recognize the drivers and our customer service folks, the people on the boots on the ground who didn't really miss a cart. In fact, they probably picked up extra carts because if there was a cart at the curb, whether we knew they had an account or not, they serviced it so that the customers didn't experience any real impact from this. There were customers who experienced some longer hold times when they did try to get a hold of us, and we apologize for that. Something that we know is a problem, and we are continuing to work to reduce our hold times. And we're tracking data weekly now, daily and weekly, and I get a report every week, and the numbers are trending down. So we'd like to be at the 3-minute hold time. I think we're at the point. Sometimes that spikes during heavy call times. Sometimes it's better than that. So I just wanted to let you know that we have recovered from that, but I do appreciate Justin and the Solid Waste Commission and the commissioners in being graceful with us on this one. So we are here today. As Justin mentioned, we are here to seek a 5% rate adjustment. I'll talk about a few of the drivers for that. CPI projected for the 12-month period that we're currently in is 3.9%. Last year's year over year was 3.6%. That's March to March. We do continue to see labor cost increases generally across all of our services. And I think we're experiencing the same thing in the county. We are fully staffed. Did we hire the welder that we had talked about last year? Okay, we did fill that last position that we had mentioned we were trying to fill last year. So we are fully staffed up. And we do, try to maintain retention. It's more expensive for us to bring in a brand new person and train them for a year than it is to, keep our employees satisfied with living wages. So let's see. Also, we are seeing disposal cost increase of 7%. Part of that comes from a transfer station, a landfill cost increase at headquarters landfill in Cowlitz. They raised rates again this year. So, I feel like this is a repetitive story that inflationary pressures are hitting us just like they're hitting everybody else. We are asking for a 5% rate adjustment to keep us on top of that. Let's see. Just a couple of other things. We are looking for in the next year, replacing some of our fleet. We've talked about waiting 3 years for a F-150, which is shocking to me. We've been waiting for years for new trucks. And it still is taking a long time. This is still COVID stuff, still impacting supply chain. Our average fleet age for our trucks is 12 years. We have some trucks that are 15 years on the road. That is not good. We'd like to stay in the 7 to 10 range, but so we are going to be looking at some capital investments here at the coast in the coming year. Okay. I feel like I'm belaboring this. Let's see. So I'm going to move on. You have a full packet of our rate review report. We provide a lot of detail. I think sometimes the reports are a little bit confusing. I don't know if you actually looked at them or not, but even I have a hard time understanding them still after a year. Looking next year to provide a little bit more simplified rate review without taking away any of the information, but just putting in a format that's a little bit more digestible. So what we're asking for is a 5% rate increase on all service rates. What that would look like for a weekly 32-gallon garbage customer, which would include the every other week recycling. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. That wrong. Would look at going from $32.28 to $33.89. That's $1.61 per month, or 37 cents each week when they do that. So with this rate adjustment, it would put us at a 9.65 operating margin. And I know Justin called it a profit margin. I just want to make sure everybody's super clear that that operating margin is pre-tax. So we pay taxes out of that. We also set aside some of that money to maintain stable financial account balance and make investments in future equipment. So it's not just profit. I'd love it if it was that, because it comes back to us as employee owners, but it's not. So I just want to make that clear. So without any rate adjustment, it would put us at 5.86 operating margin for this 12-month period. And that puts us outside of that 8 to 12 acceptable range. So I think that's it. I would like to talk at some point with Justin about side yard rates. I don't think it's used very much here in the county, but for customers with a 90-gallon cart, there's quite a difference between curbside set out of carts and side yard service, which means the driver gets out of the truck and goes up the driveway to the side of the house and brings it to the truck, empties it, and walks it back up to the side of the house. The differential on the 90s is pretty good. It's about a 50% increase to cover those extra costs. For the 32-gallon customers, it's only, I think, $1. And so I'm not sure why that happened. It happened before any of us were responsible for setting these rates, but we're seeing the same thing in Manzanita and Cannon Beach and Seaside. And we're talking with all of the elected bodies that we'd like to address that inconsistent rate differential between the two different sizes of carts in the future. So I'll bring that up with Justin next time we chat. I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions about it.
Thank you. I'll start with you, Commissioner Olson.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm the liaison to this particular activity, and I am somewhat familiar with what you're doing, and Justin and I have talked about it, and I've sat through most of the meetings. So I support what you're asking. I don't see any reason not to, because your costs are going up, and we look at that across the board on all kinds of things, as you mentioned. Our own other costs at the county, including wages and salaries, are not going down. That's the real world we live in. So I do have a couple of questions just incidental to what you said. Sure. One is, do you operate, and I know you're mostly in the north side of Tillamook County. We have some other providers. I happen to live down on the south side, and I pay, I think, $32 a month for one can. And then if there's a second, I think it's just a bit more, and that's for weekly pickup. We use Nestucca, and they have a driver and a second person who basically hangs onto the truck and goes out and does what I consider to be not the old fashioned, but maybe a different way. Do you use the hydraulic lifts? Because I've seen that elsewhere where they come along and there's only one driver and they have this device that comes out hydraulically, picks up the can, tips it in. Is that what you're using now for the most part?
Yes.
And you find that although capital costs must be substantially higher and maybe insurance and everything else, but is it a profitable way to go?
It's a lot more efficient.
Yes.
Quicker than one driver, and then it also cuts down on injury
Sure.
and sustainability for your drivers to get through to.
Of course. And that's what I've always thought, just in the back of my mind. These people start out and they move a lot of stuff and lift it, and sooner or later there'll be some kind of an injury or workers' comp claim. And it's kind of a difficult way to earn a living, but I appreciate that you offer benefits and all of that. My second question is, yesterday I happened to watch a session put on by Association of Oregon Counties. Commissioner Scar, being an officer, was in that as well. And there was a session, I think, put on by people down in Eugene area, Lane County. And I'm familiar with the Short Mountain landfill there that generates electricity. And I used to be on our electric utility board, so I'm pretty familiar with that. In fact, I visited that site. But my question there, they had a session on lithium-ion batteries and the disposal, and we all, at least the two of us, saw that. And I don't know if Commissioner Bell, you tuned into that one or not, but could you speak to what happens? And what they showed were mountains and mountains of lithium-ion batteries. And we all have heard of airplanes flying around the world, and all of a sudden there's a fire in the hold because a lithium battery self-ignited. How do you folks deal with those kinds of hazardous wastes?
happens, so locally, so we don't, because we don't operate the Tillamook transfer station, so up at Astoria transfer station, we have a kind of a strict rule that we follow to dispose of them properly into a barrel. And then we have a vendor that comes out and picks them up and takes them to where they take them.
We'll find that out. But I can speak to the lithium ion battery problem generally. So they're becoming ubiquitous and,
Mhm.
you know, they used to just be in hand tools, chargeable, drivers and that sort of thing. Now I'm seeing like even hair dryers and like, they're in greeting cards. There has been literally an explosion in the number of fires in trucks and transfer stations. And I've heard as many as 60 fires a month at the main transfer stations in Portland that we operate on behalf of Metro. So Metro South Station, Metro Central. So this is a huge problem that I'm hoping that there will be progress in the next 2 years on extended producer responsibility legislation to put a fee on every lithium ion battery sale so that it can be properly and better managed so that it does not create fires. There was a fire in California where we call it a hot truck, where a fire starts in the back of a garbage truck. And the driver pulled off to the side of the road and people were pulled over and said, don't unload that right here. Just don't do it. You're gonna start a forest fire. Well, the guy, because he had no choice, his truck was on fire, unloaded this pile of garbage and started a forest fire that killed 2 people. And so we're super sensitive to lithium ion batteries and the most important thing that we can tell people, this is your massive audience watching right now, I'm sure, is don't put them in your recycling, don't put them in your garbage. Take them back to the like a store that might take them, like the electronics store sometimes accepts those. Do we take them at the
Yeah, we
HHW
take them in,
facility
yeah.
and at the transfer station? Okay, so keep them separate because they are really gonna raise costs. I'm seeing 300% cost increases for insuring transfer stations in the industry. So
We've had 2 at the Astoria transfer station and we had a truck for the hot load and they had to eject it out in Deermark.
Wow.
So, and this is only gonna get worse as we move on it. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. I don't know if I exactly answered your question.
No, you did. That's,
Yeah.
thank you. That's very, very helpful and educational. And, we all have them, whether they're in a flashlight or something little. And I think most all laptop batteries are lithium ion these days because you get extended life. The chemistry is good. And as we move into more and more electric cars, I was several years ago, I was back east somewhere, I don't remember where, it doesn't matter. And I was at a session at this conference on electric cars, and they were just really coming on then with Tesla and the others. And my question to the presenter was, you've told us that you will have 40 or 50 or 60 million electric cars here within a few years. It may not have been an accurate forecast, but there are lots of them there. What are you going to do when the batteries are done? They've been recharged or rebuilt or whatever they can do, and you're going to have 50 million batteries the size of a mattress, a queen mattress. Where are you going to put them? Well, they had no answer at all. I said, well, we'll solve that problem when we get there. I didn't think that was a really good answer, but so what can you tell us about long-term with all this stuff?
Yeah, I think they can be recycled and managed properly at the end of life. It's the reason that they start fires typically is and I learned this by attending an Association of Oregon Recyclers session specific on batteries with a whole day of battery presentations. The reason so many fires start in garbage trucks and at transfer stations is when the chemistry, there's a barrier between 2 sides within those batteries. When you compact a garbage load or you come across a battery with a loader, one of the big piece of yellow iron equipment, and you break that barrier between the 2 chemistries, it can spark a fire. So our industry is particularly susceptible to lithium ion started fires. And so, but I know you can break that chemistry down properly and you can manage those materials properly if you got the right, business. And so getting it to us, keeping it separate from recycling, keeping it separate from the garbage bin is really going to save us all money. Like I said, I think this is really one of the most important issues for the industry
Well, thank you. That's good information. And, as technology advances, sometimes the practical side of it is, a year or two behind what the engineers have designed up front. So, but I appreciate your remarks and where you are. And I also would be in full support of recovering your costs and getting where you are. And I appreciate the fact you're an employee-owned company, because a lot of them aren't. And not that that's good or bad. It's different. And I like to see that sort of thing where in essence, you're a co-op in so many ways. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I'd also just reflecting on the employee-owned part is just really, I appreciate that. I think that if our world had more employee-owned companies, it would be a better place. So thank you for doing that and being a part of that as the owner sitting in front of me. So thank you for that. We understand your cyber attack issue. As you know, the county had us, or may know, the county had a cyber attack a few years ago as well. It was just before I got here. So Commissioner Bell could speak, probably last commissioner who could speak to it, but others in the room could as well, and understand the challenges that go with that. And what I will say is, as sitting commissioner, I didn't hear from anybody about their loss of service related to that. So I do think you must have done a really good job of managing services through what was obviously a very, very difficult time. Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah. Pass on our thanks, because I think that again, I didn't hear anything as a commissioner, which means again, that you all did a great job. People were not, having very poor service and reaching out. So you managed through a very difficult time. So I think I heard you say that you are not currently offering recycling services. Is that right? And you are in the cities, but you're also in the unincorporated county sections, right? So with the upcoming Recycling Modernization Act, will that be a piece then for you all that you have to begin to consider those recycling services and what that will look like?
Yes, and I've been following the RMA pretty closely, and I will be, I sent some information to Justin already, and I'm sure he has got it from DEQ, as well as the Circular Action Alliance, which is the designated nonprofit that's responsible for implementing the RMA across the state of Oregon. And so this does present a good opportunity for the county to get new funding in to fund things like expanded recycling services. The funding could be used to purchase recycling roll carts that we could then come back to the county and talk about what it would cost us to service those. Justin has a questionnaire sent to him. It's over 100 questions about what kinds of things the county would, and he needs to represent all the haulers in that, but happy to help Justin work on that very dense questionnaire. And it's kind of crazy. I feel like they're building the sailboat after they set sail. So lots of things are happening. There might be a possibility for him to delegate the survey login information directly to Recology, and we would answer the questions on behalf of our service area portion of the county, and then submit it back, and he can review it. And if he would like a presentation about what the options are and what would be proposed, this initial survey is due June 28th, but it doesn't bind us to any future funding requirements. The program doesn't start until July 1 of 2025, but it will fund things like new recycling equipment, new education. I think it's $3 per person, per resident, that the county and your service provider can utilize to do more contamination reduction, like batteries, for example. It also helps offset the cost of recycling. So for years, recycling processing costs sometimes have provided a financial return to us, but really over the past 15 years since China enacted new regulations, it's been a cost center. So it's still better than putting recyclables in the landfill, but we pay to transfer it to Portland. We pay to have those tons of materials processed and sorted and sent to responsible markets. The RMA is designed to bring that to a zero cost for us. And we've seen processing costs 65, even close to $100 a ton in the last decade. Right now it's down to 30 or so, which is pretty good. But under RMA, that new funding coming in from all of the product manufacturers is meant to bring that to zero. So that will help alleviate pressure on rates. It won't necessarily mean you don't have to ever raise rates, but it will, one mitigating factor for future rate increases. And then finally, it costs us money to transport materials from the coast to Portland. They're gonna pay us for that transport. So those are all good opportunities for the county to take advantage of, and we'll work with Justin on the answers.
Perfect. Thank you. I think so one thing I hear constantly and from our residents is, why can't I have curbside recycling? You know, it's just, there's a great desire for it in the community. And I think the Modernization Act is an opportunity. It's also a challenge for sure, but an opportunity. So I appreciate your willingness to work with Justin, and as we move forward with that, and hopefully can give our residents an easier way to recycle.
Katie mentioned Clatsop County, and
Mhm.
we've been working with them for years, I think, on setting this up, both franchising but also providing recycling to all of our suburban and rural customers.
Yeah.
We really can't do that on a subscription basis, because if you have one person who lives
Right.
2 miles or 20 miles
Yeah.
down the road and wants that service, it's gonna be very costly on a
Mhm.
subscription. So if
Sure.
you're serious about doing this, and now's a good time to do it because of the RMA funding, it would just be built into the rate, and we can set up a rate model and run it by Justin and bring it to you and the the Solid Waste Commission. And have a conversation about what that rate adjustment would look like, but we would want to say, roll it out to everybody, and some
Right.
people might not to do it. And one way to mitigate that cost increase is they could potentially go from a 90-gallon cart down to a 32.
Right.
And by putting some of those recyclables in their cart instead of the garbage. So that's helpful. I
Perfect.
feel like I'm
Thank you.
talking a lot.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that, Justin, we will be talking about that as this all starts rolling forward. I know that you are correct. They are building the boat after they have set its sail. It's as many things do. I've heard enough at Association of Oregon Counties to know that's part of it, but it's still good work, and we look forward to getting there. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for being here in person. I've learned several things. I didn't know that you were employee owned. That's very impressive, admirable. I didn't know about the cyber attack, and that's significant because I am your customer. I live in Nehalem, and I'm your customer, and the service was seamless. I don't know my driver's name, but he's wonderful. And on the rare occasion, maybe a couple times, that I have just forgotten to wheel my cart out to the side of the road, he's come and gotten it for me. So I come home, filled with gratitude for my driver for doing that extra thing for me. It's very kind. And yeah, it's a great service. I didn't know about lithium batteries. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So that makes me think, where do I have lithium batteries in my house, in my garage? What are we doing with those? So I just learned something valuable. And I appreciate the conversation about future recycling opportunities. I, for one, would be willing to pay a higher rate to have the opportunity to recycle. And I think, you just described the rate I will be paying, and the increase is perfectly reasonable. I recall the previous solid waste program manager, Dave McCall. I asked him once, what is the highest use of recyclable materials that end up in the garbage, in the landfill? And he said cardboard by far, because so many people are ordering things online. So many things are delivered. And I'm certainly, that's certainly true in my household. And I do recycle my cardboard, but I let it stack up in the garage for a long time before I take it in. And so I wonder, if it were, I used to be the liaison to solid waste. So I went on some of the tours, the recyclers tours, and I understand there are complications with commingled recycling, et cetera. But I wonder, what if we were able to start recycling cardboard, to be picked up? That could dramatically reduce the amount of cardboard that's going to the landfill. So, maybe it would be possible to start with one manageable thing as opposed to commingled or everything.
Yeah, I think the challenge with that is that, customers could choose to use their roll card just for cardboard, but cardboard does have some of the highest values. It's valuable in some ways because it's the easiest thing to separate out from everything else. I have never seen a program where we exclude the other recyclables
Hmm.
and just collect cardboard in a cart. I think they're going to provide that service at the curb, and especially with the now offsets on processing costs, it's gonna make financial and also environmental sustainability sense to just do it, the combing. So plastic bottle, plastic jugs, tubs, cardboard, paper, mailers, all of those things can go in that cart. That material is gonna get shipped. Most of the cardboard will get pulled out of their transfer station. It all goes to Fort.
If it's easy to pick out, we'll pick it out if it's right there, but, up out of Warren, we have actual cardboard routes, we have cardboard cages for business. That's something we can talk about for here. Of course, it's a cost because it's a whole driver and a whole truck coming down to do just cardboard, but, that might be a good way to start and have some of the cages for businesses. And then the way it runs is they don't necessarily belong to account because when you have our garbage service, you have a cardboard at no cost and more than one business can use it. So kind of like a cardboard cages around.
We can do cardboard at the business level, but hence I'd recommend. We'll partner people, flatten their cardboard, they can get that in the car. Might as well try to get the other stuff as well, because it's all gonna.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the conversation and thanks for your service.
Okay.
All right.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order number 24-032 and Solid Waste Service District Order number 24-006, in the matter of increasing customer rates for solid waste disposal and for solid waste collection franchisee, Recology Western Oregon, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, now we will take our unscheduled item, which is consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment of a member to the Tillamook County Fair Board. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, our Fair Board, as I think most people know, consists of currently 5 individuals. There have been at least 3 ordinances adopted in recent years that provided, I think the first one was for 5. Then a year or 2 later, the county adopted one that said it could go to 7. And then the last said 5 or 5 to 7. And that's the one under which we're currently operating. So having only 5 conversations with our fair manager and others, we opened it up and received a couple of applications. One individual did not respond after we'd scheduled that person for an interview for whatever reason. So we were left with an individual, and we interviewed him last week. And as it turned out, he's a really, really good person in my judgment, and I think the judgment of those of us who were there, including Commissioner Bell. His name is Corey Hollis. He happens to be a police officer with the city of Tillamook. He's from Texas, but we're not going to hold that against him at all. He married a lady who's from this part of the world, I think from Tillamook County, was in Texas. They got together and she talked him into doing the sensible thing, which is coming to Oregon. And so indeed, he's been an officer now for several years. He's got a young family in school and was very interested and eager to join the Fair Board. And the Fair Board, as we've said in previous meetings, and most people know, this is not a board that sits around and talks about philosophy and how much money's in the bank and so on. They frequently come to meetings with a truck and some heavy equipment, meaning either a backhoe or a chainsaw or other carpentry tools, and they jump right in and do things. And he's prepared to do his share with that as well. And so I think he brings some additional balance to the Fair Board, and he's willing to do it. I called and left him a message. I haven't heard back, but I'm assuming he left the meeting saying, yes, he would like to go forward. So that's where we are. So I'm in full support of this individual. I think it's a good move to bring him on.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. No, I appreciate my fellow commissioners for doing the interview. I was unavailable that day and I trust your judgment and am delighted to have an additional Fair Board member.
Thank you. I did participate in the interview, and I thought Mr. Hollis was an excellent candidate. And he brought his daughter with him to the interview because she was on a ride along with him that day. And I had the sense that it will be the sort of thing that they all dive into as a family. And so he was enthusiastic and genuinely interested. And I think he'll be a terrific addition. I can imagine how well he'll get along and work with the other Fair Board members. And so I think it's a great opportunity. All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order number 24-033, in the matter of appointment of a member to the Tillamook County Fair Board, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, item 11 is consideration of an order in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for the public safety radio bond campaign. Rachel Haggerty.
Staff is continuing to prepare for the radio bond in November. It's going to hopefully, if it passes, do a significant upgrade to our public safety radio communication system that all of our first responders depend on. We're putting together a team of different disciplines. One of those is which is our outreach team. So we put out a call for proposals in April. We received 2 submissions, and upon interviews, we've selected Praxis Political. This will be paid out of the ARPA funding. The amount of the contract that we've negotiated with them, which is an extensive outreach and communication plan, which will get us up to the election, is $59,450. And this is not to be confused with another effort that will parallel it with the Political Action Committee. There's an opportunity to hire them through the Political Action Committee to participate in the advocacy work, but this is neutral information sharing campaign materials. So this is ready for your consideration, similar to the Shiloh project that we just talked about. A contract will come before you next week.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioners?
No, I think this is great. I'm very excited about getting moving on the radio project. And I have actually had the opportunity to work with Praxis Political myself recently and seem to be a really good group of folks. So I look forward to working with them on the radio bond as well.
Terrific.
Thank you. I've kind of taken a lead on this radio project, and I also sat in on the interviews with the 2 firms, and either could have done or probably would do an excellent job of getting the message out, a truthful message, straightforward message. But at some point you make a decision and you say, well, which one has more resources to devote to this, or who has the more relevant experience and all those considerations. So we ended up with Praxis, and I have heard of them. I've not worked with them personally, but they've been around some time, and they certainly know the landscape, including how to deal with the Secretary of State's office, which is quite important because what is said with the public dollar is somewhat different than what's said with a private dollar in terms of a bond measure or some other matter before the voters. And they clearly understand that, and they've done this numerous times with other jurisdictions and businesses, I think, as well. And so this is not their first rodeo, so to speak, and I think it's a good choice, and we'll have more to come as this unfolds over the coming weeks and months. So I'm in very much support of getting this off the ground and moving forward.
Terrific, as am I. We have been talking about the radio project for years, but just for if someone is tuning in who's not familiar with the radio project, Rachel, would you, like, in a nutshell, describe what the radio project is and why we need it?
Sure. The current system is owned in its entirety by Tillamook County, except for the microwave components that are owned by 911. We're talking everything from equipment and vehicles, handheld radios, mountaintop repeaters, and everything in between, networks, etc. There were some minor upgrades in the early 2000s, which made good strides in improving communication. But given our terrain and that this system is over 20 years old, we are in dire need of a county-wide upgrade. And so we've worked extensively with our radio user groups, police, fire, sheriff's office, Adventist Health, to go through a process to analyze our system, determine what our needs are, and identify a concept. All of that has been completed. We have a price of $27 million, and that's in that's projected out for a 25-27 build of what it would cost during that time if it's approved under the general obligation bond this year. We've secured $2 million through a federal appropriation to offset that cost. We have 2 pending grant applications to continue to reduce that, so we don't have to ask the voters for $25 million, but we may still have to. So we're still always actively searching for grant funds. We're working with the State Interoperability Council to ensure that we have a good design. So we have lots of partners, but it's a very complex, expensive, and long-term project. If all goes as planned, the new system will be online in fall of 2027. 2027. Yeah, so did I say that right? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So it's much needed, it's overdue. It will serve all of our first responders countywide, and we just have to go through this step in order to continue to move forward with the project.
Yeah.
So,
And
folks-
and it will not eliminate all of our coverage issues, but it will certainly improve our coverage issues and enhance our interoperability to be able to speak with neighboring counties and other agencies.
Thank you very much. Ready for a motion?
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order number 24-034 in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for the Public Safety Radio Bond Campaign, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, we have an executive session today, so I'll read the meetings and announcements. Before we go into executive session, do either of you have additional board concerns?
No, I believe we are having a work session or discussion this afternoon as scheduled, correct?
Yes.
So anything, we can talk about a few things there, but no, nothing this morning. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing this morning for me.
Okay, so other meetings and announcements. The commissioners will hold a board briefing today, as Doug said, Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 at the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. The commissioners will hold an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub I on Thursday, June 6, 2024 at 3 p.m. to conduct a performance evaluation. The executive session will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse. The executive session is not open to the public. The commissioners will hold a 4-H extension service budget meeting on Friday, June 7th, 2024 at 11 a.m. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 at the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. The commissioners will hold a leadership team meeting to discuss the strategic plan on Friday, June 14th, 2024 at 10 a.m. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse. All of these announcements are on the website, the county website, and the Board of Commissioners page. So you can look there for links and for the conference ID numbers, etc. So with that, we will be going into executive session at, oh, we don't have any clocks, at 10:03.
And we're going under 9.
Thank you. All right. So when we reconvene this meeting, we will not be making any decisions to my knowledge. All right.